I think we're going to need a bigger Batcave. Here's a look at the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, Batman and Robin's Batgirl. The Dark Knight battles his greatest threats yet, cold-hearted Mr. Freeze, venomous Poison Ivy, and the unstoppable brute known only as Bane. Batman finds himself at odds with his crime-fighting comrade Robin, no longer satisfied with his role as a sidekick. As Mr. Freeze threatens to unleash a new ice age upon the citizens of Gotham City, the dynamic duo, now joined by the heroic newcomer Batgirl, must learn to work as a team before Gotham City is put on ice. I have no idea, by the way, how Alfred has the time or the resources to keep churning out new bat suits. Despite that, grabbing the tape measure, Batgirl stands at about 6.5 inches in height, or the figure is going to be about 16.5 centimeters tall. What we have collected so far for crime fighters, bringing in first the George Clooney Batman that we had a look at here, getting the figure just to stand enough that he's not going to fall forward. That certainly did happen when we had a look at the Robin. Speaking of Robin, though, let's also bring in the Robin so you guys can see what he looks like. Batgirl, of at least the trio, is the shortest of the three. One that doesn't really belong necessarily with fighting people or putting on bat suits in the Batcave, although I'm glad she probably isn't wearing a bat suit because, of course, Alfred would have to then work overtime. Here's what the figure also looks like with the Uma Thurman Poison Ivy. Batgirl succeeds with having the frozen finishing touches for Mr. Freeze, but before, of course, we look at the things on this side, let's look at the things on this side. The figure comes included with a black circular display stand. Nothing really different this time around. Of course, you got the same DC logo down below here in the middle. Off to the side, that's not quite in the middle. You got yourself a peg that can plug into either one of her feet. I had a problem with Poison Ivy's standing, although in the review I did say at least she had a wider bottom to her boots. Gave her a little bit more stability, although she kind of does rock back and forth. Batgirl, I'm even blessed by the fact that she can even balance the way that she is right now, because she's got really small boots. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. So I'm going to keep this pretty close. So I'm not going to, of course, if she happens to take a tumble, because of course Robin and Batman both took a tumble at the end of the review of Robin, I'm going to make sure I have myself my display stand really close and on the ready. What's also on the ready is the fact the figure comes included with the trading card. This trading card still looks good. I mean, it's basically just taken, again, the poster panel. So if we kind of line everything up as best we can get it, this would have been the top for Poison Ivy. I'm going to take Batman. I don't have nearly enough hands for this. Batman would go, can you see that? Batman would go at the top, Robin, Batgirl down below here, and then just putting Batman to the side. If we took Robin, this is fun. If we took Robin, we just lined everything up there. So basically that would be the poster, and then Mr. Freeze would kind of be like in the middle here. Again, I don't mind the fact that they're using this side of Batgirl. I mean, it's a nice side profile. And honestly, again, like using, if they had taken a still from the movie, I didn't mention in the other two reviews, I don't think it would have made any sense. It would just been some random image of her. I would hate to think it would just be Batgirl or Barbara ringing the doorbell of Wayne Manor. Like, how interesting would that have really been? So again, like taking something just from a poster. I mean, there's already somebody that's talented that worked behind the scenes to make that poster at least look good, whether the movie was a bomb or not. Why not just use this as a piece of source material? Then on the back, of course, Barbara Wilson, not Barbara Gordon, even though I did say Barbara Gordon. Barbara Gordon normally is Batgirl's real name. This time around, it's Barbara Wilson because, of course, she's the niece of Alfred. Why did we all have to have them connected that way? And then down below, of course, you've got yourself the paragraph read. You can read for yourself. It just happens to be, in fact, the same read-up that we had with Poison Ivy, the same, in fact, read-up that we had with Robin, and if you could believe it, the same read-up that we also got with Batman as well. I'm going to be putting these cards in my sheets. I wish I could actually put them in could I put them in such a way that they're, well, no, I'll have to kind of put them like that. I mean, they're obviously not going to line up like a poster. Never mind. Move those to the side. The figure also comes included with, like I said, the finishing touches for Mr. Freeze. Where we've left Mr. Freeze so far is in a sad state, because the figure, of course, doesn't have any arms, doesn't have a head yet. And I also have, if I can reach off to the side here, it keeps moving away from me, these little shoulder pieces. These shoulder pieces are always prone to falling off. This one has fallen off the most out of the two. So I did think, I don't know why I thought I had to put in the shoulder pads first. I just happen to have here's the arms, by the way. I probably could easily just put the arms in, and I probably should have just done those earlier. but they just plug in place. So of course you got yourself the little ball joint that plugs then into the hole that's on the side. A little bit of a snap, you're good to go. That's one side. We'll do it then on the other side. Again, looking back on this in hindsight, I probably could have easily just attached the arms onto Mr. Freeze, because the shoulder pads, it's not like the shoulders had to go in first. I was a fool to think otherwise. Plug that in place. There goes one of Mr. Freeze's legs. Let's grab that as well. Other than maybe a few little making sure that everything is going to stay properly in place, and a very obvious gap that I start to see here with Mr. Freeze, we've got at least his lower body ready. Do we have to add the head? Maybe we'll add the head next. Pop the head onto the ball joint. Is it going to be going on there successfully? May even, in fact, have to heat this one just a little bit. Harry, give me strength. Yeah, I may have to heat this just a little bit, but I think I could easily just still attach the shoulder pads. The shoulder pads are fairly rubbery plastics, and they'll just plug in on one side. They'll plug in on the other side. Again, they're fairly flimsy. I kind of wish in a way they were painted with the rest of the body being all the same silver. But again, we'll just plug them in front, plug them in the back. And there's Mr. Freeze. The only thing, leave it with me, is I'm going to heat the head, or at least, yeah, I'll heat the underside here to soften up the hole so it'll fit properly onto the peg. And then we've got ourselves a Mr. Freeze that's finished. That's basically what he's going to look like. The other thing that comes also included for at least Mr. Freeze is his freeze gun. What I like at least about the freeze gun is it's large like this. Considering that we haven't really gotten a lot of guns with any characters, I guess they could kind of waive that by the fact that this clearly doesn't look like a weapon that a burglar is going to be running down the street actually carrying around with him. What he also does have with him too is a little freeze effect that's done in translucent blue plastic, and that just plugs onto the end like that. I like that. Again, it's a nice way to finish off Mr. Freeze. Not having a freeze gun would seem out of place for Freeze, so I'm glad they actually did include it with at least Batgirl. Moving that to the side, while all those things were for Mr. Freeze, poor Batgirl does get squat. She doesn't have any accessories really whatsoever. Again, a continued trend with both the Batman and the Robin. None of these figures, unfortunately, have come included with any Bat gadgets. So, unfortunately, while she does without, what she does at least have, though, possessing for her is a pretty decent-looking sculpt. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite. If anything, looking at the other three figures as I have, I would probably say she's my least favorite. And I don't say she's my least favorite by being the fact she's got an inferior sculpt, or the paint is really bad, or I don't think it looks at all like the likeness of Alicia Silverstone. None of those things really apply for Batgirl. And yet, it's just because I don't like the character that much in the movie. It just seemed like they were throwing everything they could into Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin on their own, just battling Mr. Freeze would have been fine. But then throw in Poison Ivy, then to throw in Bane, and then on top of that, to throw in Batgirl was way too much Bat overload. Looking, though, at the closer look at the figure, I feel it looks quite a lot like Alicia Silverstone. I kind of, in a way, hope that we aren't going to be getting the Freeze suits that they have at the end of the movie, where they're all sort of wearing silver suits, and really unreasonable reason just to include it, I think, so that Kenner could actually then churn out some toys with, again, little bat sleds and the little bat suits that they would have had at the end of the movie. I think I'm fine just to get the black suits. And I don't think I would be probably good reason to believe, and I don't think McFarlane has any plans whatsoever to release these in the gold label edition figures, where again, essentially you're going to be getting this Batgirl with the silver suit, a Batman with the silver suit, and a Robin with a silver suit. I don't think we need those at all. I like the head sculpt, though. I think the paint is really done well here. I also really like the darker colors of the blonde that they've added into her hair. Otherwise, for that, she'd have kind of more of a medium blonde coloring, but just those little streaks that they've added in the darker yellow really add a nice little touch and contrast. Head sculpt is quite pretty for what it is. Whether you really like the idea of Alicia Silverstone really being Batgirl, I know obviously she was hot at the time, because of Clueless and the movies that she was doing at the time. I don't really think that Alicia Silverstone was a prime candidate to be Batgirl, and I think honestly Batgirl should have never been related to Alfred. She should have been always Commissioner Gordon's a daughter, never the niece of Alfred. The head sculpt is good, like I said. The body is good too. Although unfortunately, just again, there's so much black happening. Batman had this problem, which again, I really think that Batman needed a white wash or a blue wash just to help add a little bit of highlights. Batgirl kind of is more in the terrain of Robin, where like her suit really is just more black in the movie itself. But because there's so much black, it almost robs so much of the sculpting that they took the time to put into the figure in the first place. You can see it's clearly there, but just by having so much of it in black plastic, it feels again like it's just missing so much. You can see there's the Batgirl symbol there at the top of her chest. Nice sculpting there for like the little bodice area, or like the mid-torso area of her body. She has, I didn't even realize this, she has this little tiny utility belt. I don't even know how that thing would actually even store anything. Do we ever really see her using the utility belt in the movie? Drawing out, pulling out, for example, a batarang or a rope? There's no way There's no, I mean, obviously we have to suspend some disbelief, but there's no way that would ever really hold anything. Look at the size of this belt, and it sits so low really on her waist. She also has, like both Batman and Robin, little Batgirl symbols at the tops of her boots. These are higher boots than both Batman and Robin. Their other boots would have been sitting a little bit lower down. But again, nice sculpting. At least, I would say, at least the boots are different, shinier black plastic. This is a little shinier. The only thing actually, honestly, is not as much shiny is like this section right here, because they're also using as well soft plastic for at least the abdomen, or at least like the trunk area. The back of the figure's cape does have some nice texturing to it. Again, there's no real paint to it. It's only solely just relying, I'm guessing, on the black plastic alone. But, you know, for what it is, it's a nice, decent cape. It looks very much different than Robin, so I'm just going to grab Robin's off to the side. Robin also had a very short cape, but you can see Robin's was kind of more straight and cut off on the bottom, whereas Batgirl's was actually kind of more forming a point. I like that. It's a really interesting design for the cape. I don't love, honestly, the suit. I really think that Batgirl needed some necessary color in the way that maybe Robin had the coloring that he had for, of course, the striping on the arms and the little section on the front of his torso. I think at the very least, Batgirl could have probably had a painted symbol there on the front of her chest, maybe in kind of a darker gold color. I think that would have been a nice touch. There's just way too much black on the character's costume. That being said, though, the figure's articulation is going to be about the same as Poison Ivy's. So the head's going to rotate back and forth, because though she has such long locks of blonde, you're not going to be able to move the head as much as maybe you would want. The head looks up and down, and you can also rock it back and forth. But rotating the head, you feel right away that it's hitting a lot of different things along the way, like the shoulders, the front of her chest. I mean, it's a little harder. There is the option is still to rotate the head, but you're not going to be rotating with the ease at all. I mean, again, like just rotating, you can just feel like it's hitting stuff the whole time you're turning it. It's hitting shoulders, it's hitting the front of her chest. But again, like you're probably not going to be rotating it too extreme anyways. Probably just to the left, maybe just to the right, just enough to kind of get her in somewhat of a dynamic pose. The upper torso is going to be once again on a ball joint. Lower from that, you also have the abdomen, alternate abdomen ball joint. I'm getting all tongue twisted here. So she has a ball joint here. She has a ball joint here. As it comes to certainly their arms, Batgirl's arms do come out 90 degrees. You can bring in as well the arms and rotate them really all the way around. So while again, like just because of the length of her hair, she can't really rotate her head all the way around, she could at least by the benefit of having a cape so close to her quarters of her body, you can at least rotate the arms all the way around. Figure does have a swivel in her bicep, double hinge on the elbow, and the hands rotate once again all the way around. Still wish, though, these figures could have had actually gripping hands. Getting them just closed fists for every now figure that we've looked at. Poison Ivy really was the only figure that we actually had gripping hands for. All the other Bat characters, ironically enough, that could hold accessories if they had them, all of them are still having closed fists, which again makes no sense to me. Legs do split out. Once again, they're on ratcheted joints. You can take those legs for Batgirl and move them forward and move them back. The lower trunks, once again, are using a softer plastic. So unfortunately with that, as you're moving the legs forward and back, every once in a while, it's already happened to me with Robin for the number of times I've moved the leg, it starts to kind of develop a little bit of a lip. See that? So as you're moving the leg forward like this, it's going to kind of start to stretch the plastic around the trunks. So just be aware of that as you're using the figure. Of course, the swiveling, swiveling at the top of the thigh. The figure does have a double hinge on the knee. And again, like she has the ankle articulation back and forth and rocking back and forth, but even surprised to see that she has toe articulation. But again, like look at the size of her feet. They're so small. She really only has this back section for her heel and then this much space on the front of her boot to give her give her the necessary space to, of course, stand properly. When we look at her and compare her, say, next to Poison Ivy, they gave her this little extra lip right here. I wish they could have done something similar to Batgirl. I know obviously her heel sits probably a little bit closer to her boots than Poison Ivy does, but I think by just giving her just a little bit more clearance, or hey, why not? Even if she has small feet in real life, Alicia Silverstone, maybe even if they had just made the boot just a little bit longer in the toe, so she had a little bit more of an easier time to stand properly. Again, putting the figure down here, is she going to even stand? She might. Maybe she will. Let's hope she doesn't fall like both Robin and Batman did in the early reviews. And of course, like we get at the end of the movie, there's always that silhouette run where everybody's running away from the bat symbol towards the front of the screen. Bring in Batman, bring in Batgirl, and bring in Robin. Nice looking figures. Again, like something I will mention, I'm sure, when we look at Mr. Freeze, is I still feel like we should have gotten ourselves Bane as the build-a figure, and Mr. Freeze could have been, again, like one of the fifth figures. But for what selection we actually did get, and if this is the only time that we're going to be getting Batman and Robin figures, I'm happy with what we've gotten. By just process of elimination, of all the figures we've had a look at, Batgirl is my least favorite. Nothing, again, on the actual sculpting. I don't think McFarlane is slouched at all on the sculpting of looking like Alicia Silverstone, but it's just by the fact that I don't like the character in the movie. I never thought that she should have ever been related to Alfred, and it just felt like almost Spider-Man 3, like they just forced unnecessary extra characters and extra narrative into the movie, when easily it could have just been a Batman and Robin solo or team-up movie. Batgirl didn't need to necessarily be in the movie, but I'm glad at least that McFarlane included her when it came to this wave. I think my problem with Batgirl in the movie was first the fact that she was even in it, second that they cast Alicia Silverstone, and third the fact they gave her a really boring batsuit. I mean, Robin doesn't have much in the way of color, but at least to his credit, he has that sort of Nightwing symbol that goes across the front of his chest. Batgirl has a small Batgirl symbol, but you can't even make it out in the movie. I mean, if they had at least colored that in kind of a darker yellow, for example, matched a utility belt that she could have also had around her waist. Still, I mean, like, I don't even know how she stores anything in that utility belt. A batarang, a rope, forget about it. Maybe bat capsules are about the only thing she can store in something so small like that. But Batgirl really did need some necessary color. It sort of seemed and it felt like watching her on screen that Batgirl was an afterthought. Like they had already finished everything, and maybe Kenner came up to them and said, hey, listen, we want to have a female figure. We want to have Batgirl as part of our figure line. And even if you go and look at the original Batgirl design, Kenner had already planned something where Batgirl had a cowl complete with ears. Well, you can clearly see in the movie she never has a cowl piece, other than I think when she's riding that motorcycle into the iced over city, that she eventually takes that off as a helmet. But prior to that, Batgirl, and for even the rest of the movie, never wears an actual cowl, which is one thing, again, like hiding their identities. I mean, we can all say that Robin was not hiding his identity at all. We all knew by looking at him he was clearly Dick Grayson wearing a mask. But I feel like in a way, like Batgirl, Barbara Wilson, still looked like Barbara Wilson, just happened to be, hey, it's Barbara Wilson walking around in a rubber black suit and wearing a black mask. Even though not liking again the character, I like the look of the figure, whether she really belonged in Batman and Robin or not. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Now we, of course, have wrapped up the four figures, because, of course, we still have to look at the Build-A-Figure Mr. Freeze. But of the 4 figures that we've had a look at, in what order would you put them in? What's your favorite figure all the way down to your least favorite? And is Batgirl number 4? Let me know down below in the comments section. Also, hey, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly would like to stick around for more, those taking a tally will already know we've checked off 4 boxes. We've completed having a look at all the 4 figures, and through those 4 figure reviews, we've taken the parts to build Mr. Freeze. And actually, off camera, I was able to force Mr. Freeze's head on top of his neck ball joint. So, of course, we will have a look at a finished Mr. Freeze in the upcoming review. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.